It's Friday, January 13th, 2023. We have a lot to talk about today. Before we do, I want to respond to a comment. A woman out there said that I am way too skinny for a man. I look ill, and she is very, very concerned. Now, of course, she didn't have a picture, but just to let you know, I mean, I don't know if that's the skinniest man you've ever seen. I don't know, you tell me. I'm doing the best I can. I'm working out as much as I can. To this woman who didn't have a picture, please put up a picture of yourself because it might give us all inspiration to try and get in better shape. Now, I'm sure you're probably in incredible shape. You're probably super fit. So if you would, post a picture of yourself so we can all have inspiration. I need it. I try to inspire to be better. I try to get in better shape. I'm not in the best shape in the world. I'm not the most athletic or fit person on planet Earth, but I'm trying to get better. So post a picture. It might give me inspiration. It might give people in the comments and the subscribers inspiration. So, you know, don't hide. Show a picture of yourself. We'd love to see it. Now, without further ado, I want to get into some of what's happening today. The CPI report. Let's talk about that going back to yesterday. I think that they are really, literally trying to tranquilize or comatose the public or the consumer by posting numbers that are completely rigged, numbers that are completely fake and phony. Do you really believe those numbers that we got with the CPI yesterday? Now, I was reading an article with Martin Armstrong from Armstrong Economics. Many of you probably seen some of his work. In his calculation of inflation that impacts the average American, inflation, due to his calculations, 32%, up 32% in 2022. And this is consisting mainly of food, energy, and transportation. Yesterday, we were told that CPI was 6.5%. Tell me where, when you go to the store, where you see inflation only up 6.5%. This is absolutely absurd. We got the electricity bill today. It's up 3 times. We got the gas bill the other day, up 3 times what it was last year at this time. Now, according to Martin Armstrong, the Labor Department used over 80,000 items, including the price of paper clips, to come up with the CPI, to fool you, to rig the numbers, to manipulate the numbers. What is really scary is a lot of people watch this stuff on the television, on the news, and they believe things are getting better. They believe that inflation is improving. And it may be improving in some areas, but it's getting worse in others. And people don't realize that real wages continue to shrink. I think people more and more are beginning to realize it because they're borrowing out of their retirements. They're borrowing against their 401ks. They've wiped out their savings. They're wiping out their college tuition funds for their children. They're carrying massive amounts of credit card debt. So most people are beginning to realize this, but this is giving a false sense of security, a false hope to people when we should be preparing people for a downturn. Maybe as a nation, we should stop spending as much money. Maybe we need to bring manufacturing back to America so people actually have real jobs where we make things. That's not going to happen anytime soon. So you better be protecting your wealth right now, ladies and gentlemen, because it is going to be stolen. Americans finding it difficult to pay credit card dues on time. Delinquency rises amid all-time high interest rates. This on The Hedge today. Households are going to have a very, very difficult time meeting these obligations, these credit obligations, because every month that interest is compounding. Roughly 46% of credit card holders do not pay off their dues in full each month. And so this is going to continue to compound. This is up from 39% a year ago, so that's a 7% increase. Many people, it says here, are not aware how expensive a credit card is. Remember, how many people are using multiple credit cards, not just one. The interest on those cards and other alternative loans, like those payday loans, that interest is compounding. So it gives an example here. You take $5,000 in credit card debt over 5 years at 20% interest. That balloons into $12,441. People are going to get so deep into debt, they're never going to get out. They're never going to get out. Then an emergency pops up and they've got to pay for that. And now they're using 4, 5, 7, 8 credit cards. and they can never pay it off. They can't even pay the minimum on all these credit cards. This is how bad it's getting. Credit loss provisions soar as banks brace for pain. Goldman Sachs incurred a whopping $1.2 billion loss from the first 9 months of last year, $3 billion in losses since the start of 2020. Losses will continue to rise as all this helicopter money has now stopped. And what isn't going to stop is the interest rate on credit cards, the interest on car loans, the interest rate on mortgages. How long can the average consumer keep paying 20+% on each credit card before things begin to break? Credit card originations are expected to be 7.6% lower in 2023 compared to 2022. TransUnion expects 80.9 million. Let me repeat this number, 80.9 million new credit cards this year. And I think right now there's over 500 million credit cards in America. Remember, officially, we have around 340 million people. We have over 500 credit cards and literally 81 million new ones coming this year. Credit card balances are estimated to rise to $934.5 billion by the end of this year. Prepare for major delinquencies, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to see more delinquencies on auto loans, student loan debt, mortgages, and credit cards. And yet the banks today, the numbers came in today, and they looked fine. They looked better than expected. So earnings were better, better than expected for the banks today. And the markets across the board up today. And you would think that there's absolutely no problems. Again, look at what's happening to Goldman. These banks know that people are beginning to not make their mortgages. People are getting late on the credit cards. People are defaulting. People are defaulting on their auto loans. And yet the bank earnings today up. How manipulated is this? Do you believe that these numbers are real? Comment down below. I'd like to know your thoughts. Do you really believe that the banks are as safe as everybody is telling us? And do you believe in these earnings today that we got? Do you believe the CPI we got yesterday? Comment down below. Here's another one from the hedge. The current housing price bubble makes 2008 look quaint. If we look at the peak of 2007, equity in homes was sitting at $15 trillion, mortgage debt at $9 trillion. Today, people have $30 trillion in equity, $12 trillion in mortgage debt. So another $3 trillion in mortgage debt. It says here, the surge in prices this time around wasn't due to the lax underwriting by mortgage companies, but rather the infusion of capital directly to households following the economic shutdown. People got all this free money, all this easy money, and all this FOMO appeared. And then you had the Fed buying mortgage-backed securities, pushing this bubble bigger and bigger, and then all the FOMO and people who never should have bought a house, jumped in and bought a house that sometimes they didn't even look at, a house that they didn't get a home inspection, a house many times they overpaid for, overpaid the listing price for a home. And we're about to see millions of people with major regret for the decision that they made. And now these banks are going to take huge losses in the housing market, in the auto loans that they made, in the RV loans that they made. This is going to be really an incredible time to watch all of this burn to the ground. It really is. It's going to be scary. It's going to be frightening. It's going to cause major fire sales. It's going to be huge discounts coming. But I don't believe for a second, looking at these bank earnings today and looking at reality of what I'm talking about. But again, we're about to see millions of people really regret these decisions, buying cars, getting the student loans, buying the houses, all the FOMO that was pumped in to this economy on top of the $7 trillion over 30 months. The massive flood of money is over. And I truly do believe buyers of many of these cars, of these homes, many of these people are on borrowed time. They have absolutely no money in the bank. They're saving absolutely no money. They're paycheck to paycheck, credit card to credit card. And this thing's going to blow up, and it is going to be absolutely epic. Epic. Politico today. The governor here in California lays out spending cuts as California budget swings from surplus to deficit. We just had a $100 billion surplus, and now it has turned into a $22 billion deficit. We have 4 million people on welfare right here in California. They're sending out these inflation relief checks, these plastic credit card, ATM type cards to people, anywhere from $200 to $1,050, depending on your situation, income, whatnot. And so all this free money that California keeps giving out, this is why you go from a $100 billion surplus to a $22 billion deficit. You're going to keep handing out free money. And you look at the state of California, it is in disarray. It looks like it is now an apocalyptic movie. Homeless people everywhere, the crime going nuts. It's Mad Max, buildings going vacant, roads falling apart, trash everywhere. I drive down I-10 here in Coachella Valley. I cannot believe the amount of people just walking along the freeway or out in the desert, just walking, drifters, RVs parked in the middle of nowhere, tents parked in the middle of nowhere. It's absolutely incredible. It's an incredible sight to see how far California has fallen. I remember the heydays of California, how beautiful it was, how clean the freeways were. No longer. It is turning into a cesspool. And when you look at the rest of the country, it is going to follow the path of California, unfortunately. We have a national debt of $31.4 trillion. When you look at unfunded liabilities, $173 trillion. That's Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. The average taxpayer is on the hook now for $246,000. The average person is on the hook for about $98,000 because of this massive debt here in America. And if you go to the U.S. debt clock, the federal debt clock, you can just see these numbers. They're horrifying. But think about the average taxpayer it now owes nearly $250,000 in taxes, and it's going to get much worse. Think about what is going to be left for your kids, your grandchildren, and your paycheck right now is not going to keep up with the speed of this debt, with the speed of the spending that is taking place. This is a ticking time bomb, ladies and gentlemen. You have to do everything you can in your power right now to protect your wealth, to create wealth. Maybe it's multiple side hustles. Maybe it's working for yourself. Maybe it's just something that you can do outside of the system. I don't have the answers to everything, but right now I would be collecting as much capital, producing as much capital as I could, and buy as many assets as I could, whether that's gold, silver, land, anything of real value, and just getting out of the system the most that I could. And of course, get in the best physical shape that you can. You're going to have to be in good shape for what's coming. Here's another one from the Hedge today, a real reflection of the U.S. economy. Total freight costs fall year over year in December, first time in 28 months. I would say that one of the reasons is we are now ordering less product from overseas, especially Asia. The LA and Long Beach ports are dead. There is no longer 100 ships sitting offshore, and you're not going to need as many trucks. And when you don't have things coming into the West Coast from those ports, which make up about 40% of all the containers, just right there in LA and Long Beach, making up about 40% of all the containers that come into the US. If you have less product coming in, you're going to need less truck drivers. And so I think trucking is just going to be a really, really hard business. When we think the cost of fuel, diesel is going to continue to go back up this summer. There's going to be just less product to ship, because the consumer is buying less. At the end of the day, the consumer is buying less. So, the Walmarts, the Kohl's, the Targets, they're ordering less from overseas. And so all these, it's amazing. A year ago, we need truck drivers. We need more and more truck drivers. And we get all these truck drivers, and now there won't be anything to ship. A lot of truck drivers are going to get priced out of the business, especially the smaller companies or the independent contractors. And even some of the larger companies are going to have to cut drivers because there just isn't the material or product to ship like there was a year or two ago. I will end with this last article on the Hedge. Janet Yellen warns U.S. will hit debt limit next Thursday. She is calling on Congress to raise the debt ceiling as soon as possible. So here we go again, and more than likely they will do it again. And this is just like handing your college children, son or daughter, a credit card. They max it out and then they go, hey, I'm out of money, and you just give them another credit card and they max it out again. And when they max it out, you give them another credit card. I mean, when does this all come to an end? When does Washington, or when does this country say, hey, look, maybe it's time to cool down on the spending. Maybe it's time we're going to have to feel some pain and get our house in order. Maybe we're going to have to make some steps here. Maybe some parts of the government may have to close down. There's going to be some pain. Maybe we're going to have to make some huge cuts here. The spending has to stop. And until it does, we are just handing a credit card to a kid to just go out on a spending spree. And we're going to keep getting the same effect every time. It's going to get tapped out, and they're going to come back for another credit card and expect you to give it to them. When does somebody finally stand up in Washington and say, no more, it's over? And yes, we're going to feel some pain and some things are going to close down. I don't know if that day is ever going to happen, but again, watching what is taking place in reality, in the economy, is completely opposite of what we've been watching the past week on Wall Street and in the stock market. The stock market seems to ignore all of this, doesn't care that things are slowing down, doesn't care that you're losing a job, doesn't care that real wages are getting decimated, doesn't care that you can't save money, it doesn't care that 20 million people cannot, or 20 million households in America can't pay their utility bills, doesn't care that 41% of small businesses couldn't pay their rent last month. Does this really sound like a healthy economy to you? It doesn't care that we're $31.4 trillion in debt, over $170 trillion of debt with unfunded liabilities. How in the world, somebody please answer me this, how in the world can the stock market keep going up when America is the biggest debtor nation on planet Earth? America is broke. We are trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars in debt. We are completely disorganized. Airplanes can't take off. We can't get chicken feed on the railroad to Foster Farms up in Northern California. Everything is broken, yet the stock market goes up. It makes no sense to me whatsoever, and it's telling you and it's telling me that things are broke, things are very rigged, and the longer they continue to dupe the people, the longer they continue to rig the market, the longer they keep telling you everything is okay, the worse the crash is going to be. The crash is imminent. It's not going anywhere. It's coming. And we're going to continue to watch this death by 1,000 cuts until something really breaks. And these disruptions in the economy begin to accelerate, and people really find themselves in big trouble. It's not going away, ladies and gentlemen. Take the time this weekend to continue to prepare. God bless every one of you. Have a phenomenal weekend. Stay close to God, ladies and gentlemen, and pray for this country, because this country right now is going to suffer huge consequences. We are going to watch an economic collapse. The only thing that can save this country now is a miracle. And I don't think that there is any way to avoid a economic collapse. It's already begun. We are watching the collapse take place right now. Anybody that asks me, when's the collapse going to happen? You must never leave your house. You must not go to the store. You must be from Mars or another planet. Things have already collapsed. There's no going back now. It's just a matter of how bad the collapse gets and how long does it last. So the only thing that we can do now is pray and hope that there is a miracle that takes place to get us out of this, because how much longer can we stay in an economy like this? Who cares about the stock market? I care about the economy. Can people pay their light bills? Can they feed their kids? Can they make their house payment? Can they make the car payment? Are they going to have opportunity? Are they going to have savings? Are they going to have a retirement? I mean, this is getting really out of control, and it's really beginning to get scary, because we know what's going to come as things continue to break. Things will continue to break socially. We've never seen crime in America like it is now, and the scary thing is, this is going to look like a Sunday school picnic as far as crime is once things really accelerate. Because when people get hungry, that's when they're not going to the stores. The stores are already wiped out. That's when they're coming to your house. The question is, are you ready to deal with that? God bless.